I want to get back to this Facebook face-off now, and I'm joined by security expert Daniel Lukovic. Good to talk to you again, Daniel.
Hi, Chris.
You contacted us to talk about a surprising upside to all of this, and I like your thinking, and that is it's been a concern that sometimes in times of danger or national emergency, people might go to Facebook for information, whereas if they haven't got the news services there, people might go direct to trusted sources.
Well, the huge story today is, of course, that Facebook have essentially blacked out news to Australian users, and there's a whole lot of people who are now running around thinking, well, maybe we no longer have access to news. But that's, of course, ridiculous. News is absolutely there. What they don't have access to is the news that Facebook perhaps guides them toward. And the difference between the way we consume news now and the way it once upon a time happened was once upon a time you'd either watch the 6 p.m. news from start to finish, or you'd open the newspaper and you'd read it from left to right, and you'd get the whole cross-section. But with social media algorithms, it tends to, best case, show you news that it thinks you're interested in, or worst case, show you what they want you to see or stop you seeing what they don't want you to see. And the problem is in an emergency, in a natural emergency, be it a bushfire, an earthquake, or perhaps over the longer term, a pandemic, it's really important for people to be able to get trusted, reliable information. And part of the problem is that once upon a time you had a limited news source, and now you have this fire hydrant spewing information at you, and not all of it is accurate. And when seconds count or when your life is on the line, it's really important to be getting that. So despite the fact that, I'm uneasy about anybody being prevented of having access to information, I actually wonder whether this is going to cause people to specifically go back to more mainstream, potentially legitimate or trusted news sources, rather than just getting information that in many cases is completely unreliable and is pushed to them via these mediums.
But of course, there's, if Facebook stop hosting the Bureau of Meteorology or the Rural Fire Service, or indeed news organisations that are sharing information, there's no problem going direct to their websites and getting this information.
Right.
But if Facebook are not hosting it, that's the way people tend to curate what they're getting. Well, they might not take that next step to go there directly.
Well, this was this new sort of word that's come into fashion of curated media, where someone actually decides what you need to see, and sometimes it goes really off the rails. For example, if you found, say a 25-year-old today, they could probably tell you what the US Electoral College was, but they couldn't tell you the difference between the upper and the lower house or who their MP is here. And it's a good example of how, these systems tend to push things in front of people. And so you're absolutely right that they should know the sort of traditional source or the reliable or authoritative source to do it. But it's also important that people actually know what that is as part of being prepared before there's an emergency, rather than, for example, in an emergency when, they can see smoke or they can smell it or they know something's about to happen, then sort of Googling, what do I need to look up? Because, we have a problem today where a survey showed that a lot of young people don't even realise that 000, a number that you grew up knowing, is the emergency number because of, the media there. Or
well, they think it's 9/11, do they?
Well, that's exactly right. Now, some mobile phones recognise that as an emergency number and they connect you to 000, but a lot of phones won't. If you pick up a landline and you dial 911, no one's coming. So it's really important, and unfortunately, I think in this country, because we've only ever really known comfort, we've only known peacetime, we're not very good at preparedness. And we saw that a year ago when the pandemic hit and all of a sudden people are like panicking to get toilet paper, which is not really what you need in an emergency. It's things like first aid kit, it's things like knowing information sources. Once upon a time, people knew to keep an AM radio in the house and keep a few batteries. Now everyone just assumes, well, it's all on the internet, it's all on my phone. But that stops working when the networks go down, when Wi-Fi is inaccessible, when your phone runs out of battery, or, and this is really dangerous, when you've actually been banned from some of these platforms. When Twitter first started and people weren't really sure what this sort of strange 160-character messaging thing was, one of the things that I saw a lot of was people saying this is an amazing emergency communication tool and it could be used for mass notification of incidents and things like that. And Facebook and other things have done things in that sort of emergency space with check-ins during natural emergencies and things. But the problem you've got now is people actually get kicked off those platforms for a variety of reasons. And imagine a world where you got told that you can't listen to the local FM radio broadcast when there's an emergency. Well, that's now happening in a digital world.
That's what we're looking at now.
And it could potentially cost lives. So it's really important that people know not only where they should be going for facts, but also have a plan A and a plan B, so they have a variety of places they can get information and make sure that they're not left in the dark when the fire's over the hilltop.
Direct to the source at the moment, because Facebook is not hosting some of it. Thanks so much for joining us, Daniel.
Thanks.
Daniel Lukovic there. Fascinating area. This is the problem that Facebook has created with this big ploy. They'll have to sort all that stuff out, but it just shows how powerful they are and how useful real media is.